Have you ever played galgame? Shiina Wu looked at the blue subtitles that appeared in his sight. No. You just need to follow the strategy. It's inexplicable. This book is also known as, about I want to lock my brand new shared bicycle and only ride it for myself, about I scam my voice actor girlfriend into cosing me, novel keywords. You only focus on strategy without pop-ups, you only focus on downloading the complete collection of strategy TXT, and you only focus on reading the latest chapters of strategy. 1. Have you ever played galgame? In Chapter 1 you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Have you played galgame Tokyo? The gray sky made people feel a bit frustrated, and pedestrians rushed in and out on the road. Shiina Wu touched the umbrella in his backpack and let go. 2 minutes later, a blue bus stopped steadily at the bus stop, and he pursed his lips before getting on the bus. Due to the fact that the number 6 bus passes through a large shopping mall, even at 4 p.m., there are still many passengers on board. He got into the car and looked around, but didn't see any available space. He walked towards the back of the car, grabbed the handrail, stood still, and looked out the window. The high school here usually ends at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Due to his personal life, Shiina Wu does not participate in club activities after school every day, but instead finds a part-time job. Just as he was staring out the window in a daze, the front door of the bus slammed shut, and before the car could start, the door quickly opened again. A thin girl half lowered her head and ran into the car, bowing deeply to the driver's uncle. "Thank you, driver." The sound was very quiet and did not attract much attention in this noisy carriage. "It's okay, this student, you need to stand still. The car is about to drive." The driver turned his head and nodded with a smile, looking very articulate. After thanking her again, the girl let out a long sigh. She calmly quickened her heartbeat from jogging and looked up into the car. As she lifted her head, people also saw her appearance. Looking at a messy yet clean black short hair draped over the shoulders, with slightly curled ends, the hair on the forehead covering the eyes, coupled with wearing a black mask, it was completely impossible to see the face clearly. Because Shiina Wu's height is considered higher in Tokyo, the girl can see his profile at a glance. She hesitated for a moment before making a sound. Instead, she took 2 steps in the direction of the rear car and stopped. The car starts slowly. Have you ever played galgame? 20,000 yen, the line of text that caught his eye made Jiming Wu slightly stunned. He turned his head to look at another place outside the car window, only to find that this line of text was always in the center of his perspective. Schizophrenia. Shiina Wu thought to himself. I have watched similar videos in my past life, and some terminally ill people can even imagine an independent individual. I just don't know why he got this disease because his life hasn't experienced any excitement. Isn't it always idle? Sure, Mingwu didn't want to pay attention, but that line of text was always in the center of his perspective, even when he closed his eyes. No, there isn't. Shiina Wu answered truthfully. As he thought in his heart, the phone in his pocket vibrated. Shiina Wu's heart twitched as he took out his phone and saw a text message in his eyes. Received 20,000 yen. You just need to follow the strategy. It's inexplicable, Shiina Wu muttered. However, the extra 20,000 yen in his bank card surprised him a bit. Although it may not be much, it is not a small amount for him today. Money earned for nothing, don't waste it. Just as Ji Mingwu put his phone back in his pocket, a line of text slowly appeared in his sight. Have you ever heard of the flower language of chamomile? 20,000 yen, after pondering for a moment, he searched for the keyword, chamomile, on his phone. Glancing roughly at the search results. I have heard of it. Received 20,000 yen. Looking at the pop-up text message, Shiina Wu pursed her lips. As the most inconspicuous existence of Class C in the second year, you only know her name, Yuan Xingjie Xia. Due to family reasons, Yuan Xingjie Xia, like you, works part-time every day after school and lives a bumpy life. But today, she seems to be in trouble. 30,000 yen, is the origin of the sum or not? Ji Mingwu was slightly stunned. He looked back with a feeling and saw a thin and weak girl standing at the other end of the car with a bag on her shoulder. Behind her was a yellow-haired girl who reached into her backpack. Ji Mingwu frowned and shouted loudly. Yuan Xing classmate. Yes. Yuan Xingjia's body shook and he responded. The sudden change frightened Huang Mao and he turned his head to see a nearly 1.8-meter high school student frowning as he walked towards him. Shiina classmate. Yuan Xingjia Xiaoyan quickly raised his hand and waved towards Shiina missed. In their sight, Jiming Wu squeezed towards them from the rear carriage. When passing by Huang Mao, Shiina Wu pulled his back collar and pushed him away vigorously. Shiina classmate, thank you. Thank you. Yuan Xingjia Xia whispered in gratitude. It's okay. Shiina Wu glanced at Huang Mao, who was flustered and pushing towards the rear carriage, and turned back to politely smile. The two were relatively speechless, and Shiina Wu knew that Jinsei Jiexia was not good at talking. The two had no intersection before today, so he naturally looked out the window again. In order to make each other less awkward, Ji Mingwu specially took out the headphones and put them on. Just now, after he pulled on Huang Mao, the phone in his pocket shook again, and you don't have to think about what that means. You can earn nearly half a month's part-time salary in just a few minutes. So this is not a speculation. But it's the delayed golden finger, right? The blue subtitles don't seem to answer his question, so this is just speculation. After 4 stops of the bus, Yuan Xingjia glanced at Shiina Wu with her eyes hidden in her black hair. Shiina classmate, I'm here. Noticing that Shiina Wu was looking down at her, Yuan Xingjia Xia quickly lowered his head and seemed afraid to look at him. Okay, see you tomorrow. Although curious about why his golden finger would respond to Yuan Xingjia Xia, he still has to work at a convenience store today, so he plans to have a good conversation with Yuan Xingjia Xia tomorrow. After all, this original student seems to be very introverted, and he thinks it's better to follow a gradual approach. To avoid being too enthusiastic and scaring others, avoid him in the future. Due to the overcrowding of the car, Yuan Xingjia Xia had to get off the front door. After seeing her off, Shiina Wu withdrew her gaze. Do not lend a helping hand to someone on a cliff, if you are not confident in pulling them up. As the bus started, blue subtitles popped up again in the field of vision. What does this sentence mean? The matter is not over yet. Just as Shiina Wu was pondering, the blue subtitles first faded, and then new subtitles appeared again. In fact, Huang Mao's act of stealing was very clumsy. Yuan Xingjia Xia had already noticed it, and she occasionally tugged at her backpack to make Huang Mao stop. After 2 breaks, new subtitles appeared. But as Huang Mao's aura grew stronger, he whispered, "Hey, little girl. If you dare to shout out loud, I'll beat you up. We'll just fight each other and go to jail together. Why don't you want to be dropped out of school, right?" Facing Huang Mao's warning, Yuan Xingjia's body stiffened. She knew Huang Mao was telling the truth and she couldn't be dropped out of school, but the only remaining 10,000 yen in her backpack is her living expenses for the next month. Just as she was in despair, you appeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Never lacks malice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 never lacks malicious intention. You thought things would end like this, so after drinking away the yellow hair, you didn't care, just saw it as a gesture of effort between classmates. Due to your arrogance and neglect, the short yellow-haired figure slipped out of the car amidst the crowd and secretly followed behind Jinsei Jiexia. He suddenly turned around and looked around, realizing that Huang Mao's figure was indeed missing from the bus. Damn it! Seeing Yuan Xingjia Xia's weak nature, Huang Mao didn't want to give up on it. He gambled so much that he didn't even have a single coin, and he could do anything for food, just as Huang Mao blocked Yuan Xingjia's Xia at a corner and snatched away her only 10,000 yen, he accidentally saw her face like a summer flower. The speed of subtitles popping up is not fast, and by this time the bus has been running for nearly 2 minutes. Ji Mingwu abandoned the subtitle in the center of his line of sight and walked quickly towards the bus driver, speaking slightly hastily. "Driver, I need to get off the car." Seeing the flustered expression on Ji Mingwu's face, coupled with the subsequent fabricated very poor excuses, the driver uncle did not deliberately make things difficult. The car stopped at a roadside, and after getting off, Ji Mingwu took a big step and ran towards the road. "If you don't make a sound on the bus, the unlucky girl will have a hard time eating next month, but because of your appearance, the girl has encountered the most tragic day of her life, and since then her life has become even darker. Chamomile should have grown tenaciously in the wind and rain, until it bloomed into a stunning yellow and white flower. But if it were buried in the soil and never seen again, would it come out of the mud without staining, or would it live in the dirt and eventually decay and die? You don't know." The young man's body was very agile, but in just over 2 minutes, he ran to the platform where Yuan Xingjiexia got off. Detective Station. There were many people standing at the bus stop, but at first glance, they didn't see any familiar figures. Ji Mingwu's body stiffened. From the previous blue subtitles, he knew that Yuan Xingjiexia also came out to work part-time, but he didn't ask where Yuan Xingjiexia works in the car. "What should we do?" Shiina Wu bent over, panting heavily with his hand supporting his knees. The heat that came from running quickly surged into his head, making him even more irritable. "You regret not asking Yuan Xingjia about her place of work. Fortunately, you suddenly remembered at the last time you passed by her in the classroom, you smelled a smell of fried chicken burger because you didn't like fried food very much, so your memory is deeper." Ji Mingwu suddenly lifted his head and grabbed the chubby guy passing by, asking in a hurry. "Excuse me, do you know where the fried chicken and hamburger restaurants near here are? The distance between each bus stop is not far, and there may not be many similar fast food restaurants near this detective station, and there may even be only one." "What?" The chubby little one was confused for a moment, then stared at Shiina Wu, feeling very unhappy about being grabbed and asked for directions. However, upon seeing Shiina Wu's somewhat grim face due to breathing, he was frightened and his neck shrank, his fingers trembling as he pointed towards his right hand. "Then. Over there. Turn left again. Thank you." After releasing the chubby little one, Shiina Wu ran towards the direction he pointed to. Never let anything happen. If what the system says is true, then the damage suffered by Yuan Xingjiexia should also be counted towards him. After running a distance, the subtitles reappeared in his eyes. Ji Mingwu suddenly turned around, his gaze just aligned with the chubby guy next to the bus, and he saw that his eyes, hidden under his thick glasses, seemed to show a somewhat sinister look. There is never a lack of malice in this world. Whether it's jealousy of your height or simply displeasure, the little chubby guy pointed in a completely opposite direction. The chubby figure disappeared on the blue bus, causing Ji Mingwu to grit his teeth. But he knew it wasn't time to settle accounts with Xiao Pang. After taking a deep breath, he asked an old man not far away. "Hello, do you know how to get to a hamburger restaurant near here?" The old lady in the wheelchair looked at him in surprise and then smiled kindly. "Child, are you late for a date with your little girlfriend? Don't worry. You can walk this way for 100 meters, then turn left at a traffic light for a few tens of meters and you'll see it." "Thank you." Ji Mingwu thanked her and ran along the route she said. After running several tens of meters, he grabbed a middle-aged man and breathed a sigh of relief after receiving a similar answer. The sky became increasingly dim, with darkness pressing down on the heart of Shiina Mist. As he passed by a corner, he heard a girl scream and ran inside without thinking. "You let go, if you don't let go, I'll kill you," yelled Huang Mao fiercely. With a hiss, the cloth strap of the shoulder bag was torn off by two people. Ah! Due to inadequate nutrition, Yuan Xingjia's body was very fragile, and she fell fiercely to the side. Huang Mao didn't care about her, but he frantically broke open Yuan Xingjia's backpack and took out a small brown wallet from inside. Mine. Mine. It's all mine. As early as on the bus, I saw the girl's wallet bulging slightly, thinking that there would be a lot of yen inside. Unexpectedly, upon opening it, there were all small denomination loose coins. How could it be? How could it be so little? Huang Mao's face was ferocious, and he roared fiercely at Yuan Xingjia, who was lying beside him. You stinky watch, you're working hard just for this little money. Yuan Xingjia couldn't help but shed tears in her eyes. This was not because she was afraid, but simply because her tears were uncontrollable due to the pain. Of course, there may also be unwillingness towards one's own weakness and some grievances. Due to her fall, her hair in front of her forehead was slightly scattered, and a pair of watery eyes were exposed under her fine black hair, stubbornly staring at her yellow hair. You. Huang Mao looked at Yuan Xingjia in surprise. Even if he only showed a pair of eyes, he could see that the girl in front of him was very beautiful. He silently swallowed his saliva. Yuan Xingjia still glared fiercely at him, only to find that Huang Mao was not afraid, but slowly walking towards her. Bang! Only a loud noise was heard, and Huang Mao's figure instantly flew to the side. Yuan Xingjia was frightened by this sudden change and lowered her head. When he looked up again, he saw Shiina Wu punching and kicking Huang Mao. The heart-wrenching cries of Huang Mao echoed in the small alley, and many people on the street curiously looked towards the alley upon hearing them, but no one stopped. When Jimingwu knocked down Huang Mao with only a muffled groan, Yuan Xingjia suddenly woke up and hurriedly said, "Shiina classmate, stop hitting him. He seems to be dying." Upon hearing this, Shiina Wu raised his fist and pondered for a moment before kicking Huang Mao's stomach a few times, making him feel nauseous. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Voice Actor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Voice Actor. Seeing that he didn't stop, Yuan Xingjia's small mouth hidden under her mask opened slightly, but in the end, she didn't make any sound to obstruct her. "If I see you following her again, I'll kill you." Shiina Wu picked up his yellow hair and whispered in a voice that only two people could hear. It's hard to guard against petty people. Who knows if this yellow hair is a tough nut, so when he's not around, he'll take action against Zhenxing Jixia. The system's statement is correct, do the good thing to the end. After he finished speaking, he turned his head and glanced at Yuan Xingjia, but saw that she had nothing to say, probably not hearing what he had just said. "Are you deaf?" Unable to hear back from Huang Mao for a long time, Shi Mingwu picked up his collar with his right hand and slapped him with his left hand. Huang Mao dared not pretend to be dead when he saw the situation. "I dare not, brother, I dare not again. Get lost." Ji Mingwu still felt a bit uncomfortable and slapped him again. Huang Mao let out a scream and raised his pig-head-like face, saying in agony, "Brother, dear brother, I'll get out of here right away, but could you please let go of me first? How dare you still shout?" Ji Mingwu slapped again. He didn't know he hadn't let go, he just wanted to give Huang Mao a profound lesson. Watching Huang Mao's hands and feet flee towards the entrance of the alley, Shi Mingwu withdrew his gaze. "A few people have been dragging on here for a while, so it's better to leave early to avoid anyone reporting to the police." He feels a bit speechless just thinking about today's incident. In what era do you still play the plot of heroes saving beauty? If the game continues like this, no one will buy it. If it's really a gameplay plot and there's no hero saving the beauty at the beginning, please put on your hat. Can this game be played? Unlock a new ending and earn 50,000 yen. The phone vibrated in response to the situation. Shiina Fog. The plot is great, I really like it. The subtitles did not give any extra yen due to his positive feedback. Shiina Wu didn't pay much attention. After picking up the tattered backpack on the side, he walked up to Yuan Xingjie Xiao. "Ah, hey, thank you, Shiina classmate." Yuan Xingjie watched Shiina Wu walk in a daze, then suddenly lowered his head and whispered his gratitude to Shiina Wu's pants. "It's okay, let's leave here first. It'll be troublesome if anyone comes later." "Okay." Yuan Xingjie stumbled up, letting Jiming Wu see that something was wrong. He bent down and lifted the girl's skirt, seeing her somewhat terrifying wound. Under the school uniform, the knee area on the fair calf of the girl was blood and flesh blurred, and the black soil mixed with bright red blood was very glaring. Yuan Xingjie quickly pulled off her skirt and said in a panic. "It's okay, it's just a minor injury." She took a step forward as she spoke, and Jiming Wu could clearly hear her taking a deep breath in a low voice. "Look. Ah. Don't." Before she could say anything, she was picked up by Ji Mingwu from her waist, and Yuan Xingjie was clutching Ji Mingwu's clothes with both hands at a loss. "I'll take you to the hospital." Ji Mingwu placed her tattered shoulder bag on top of her and strode out. "The girl's body is very light." "No, Shiina, please let me go. I still have to work part-time today." Ji Mingwu looked at Yuan Xingjie, who was protesting in his arms, and stopped in his tracks. "Yuansheng, I was supposed to work part-time today as well." He meant something, and upon hearing this, Yuan Xingjie no longer struggled. After a brief meeting, he whispered softly. "I'm sorry. But. Can I take a leave at the part-time hamburger restaurant first? It's about to rain, go to the hospital first." Shiina classmate. Ji Mingwu's tone was unquestionable, causing Yuan Xingjie's neck to shrink. It seems that because Jiming Wu's act of hitting Huang Mao was too violent, she felt that Jiming Wu's anger could potentially hit someone. "But. Did you take down the phone number in your store?" "Yes. I will inform your store manager when I arrive at the hospital." Due to today's incident, Ginshin Jiexia seems to have developed a good impression of you, with a character completion rate of 3. Obtaining intelligence. Dreaming of becoming a voice actor. Sitting in the hospital hallway waiting, Shiina Wu's heart twitched. Unexpectedly, Genshin Jiexia wanted to become a voice actor. Shiina classmate. Upon hearing the girl's soft cries, Shiina Wu looked up. Yuan Xingjie walked slowly from a distance and obediently nodded when he saw Shiina Wu looking up. "Has the wound been treated properly?" Shiina Wu glanced at the knee covered by her school uniform and was about to lift it. "Ah. All right. All right, it's already taken care of." Yuan Xingjie quickly covered the skirt at her legs. Ji Mingwu also realized that his recent actions were too presumptuous and apologized. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." He was indeed a subconscious behavior, although on the way to the hospital, he accidentally touched the tender and slippery thigh of the girl, which had a certain taste. "It's okay, I know Shiina is not that kind of person," Yuan Xingjie waved his hand and said. "Well, let's go back then." "Wait, that, medical expenses." Yuan Xingjie took out a small brown wallet from a nearby backpack and nervously looked at Shiina Wu. "No need." Shiina Wu shook his head, although the medical expenses should be paid for by Genshin Jiexia no matter what. But he knew that since Yuan Jiexia, like him, needed to work part-time to survive, the economy would definitely not be good. The reason why she didn't want to come to the hospital at the first time is likely because she didn't want to spend money. Just now he checked his phone and found that he has indeed received over 100,000 yen today, which is already over a month's part-time salary. "No, if it weren't for Shiina today, all my money would have been taken away," Yuan Xingjie said seriously. Shiina Wu gave her a deep glance, probably because he appeared too early, or because the girl was too naive, so he didn't know what would happen after that. It's also good, Jiming Wu doesn't want things to become too complicated. The cleaning and dressing fees add up to over 5,000 yen. Okay, I. Yuan Xingjiexia hesitated for a moment as she opened her brown wallet. I really don't need to give it anymore. If Yuan Xing feels guilty, just help me or agree to a request in the future. Shiina Wu glanced at her small wallet, which contained quite a few coins of 100 and 500. Yuan Xingjie struggled with her wallet for a moment, and the 5,000 yuan was beyond her expectations. Can I owe it for now, Shiina classmate? Yuan Xingjie whispered. No way. Ji Mingwu refused. God knows what this girl thinks. If she were to spend all her time searching and save 5,000 yen, she would skip the last meal. When I held her before, I felt that her weight was too light. If I were to suffer from any serious illness due to hunger, it wouldn't be good. Ha! Yuan Xingjie was taken aback again, not expecting that Ji Mingwu would be so difficult to speak. Can't it be? Okay. She hesitated after the small meeting and said hesitantly. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Do you want to keep a kitty? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Do you want to keep a kitty? Yuan Xingjie didn't want to accept Shiina Wu's kindness, but 5,000 yen is really too much. If she gave all the money to Shiina Wu, not only would she go hungry, but her sister at home would also go hungry. Thank you, Yuan Xingjie whispered again. She secretly remembered from the bottom of her heart that she would have to work an extra gig this month, and this money must be paid back. Shiina is a good person. Shiina Wu didn't take it seriously. In fact, the medical expenses for Yuan Xingjie were only over 1,000 yen. He deliberately said it was higher, just because he was afraid that Yuan Xingjie would bite his teeth and give him the money. Unexpectedly, Yuan Xingjie's home was not far from this hospital. After being taken home by Ji Mingwu, she walked towards the bus stop. There is no bus passing through his house in this area, and even the nearest station takes an additional 10 minutes to walk. After getting off the car, Ji Mingwu strode towards his own home. Fortunately, although the dark clouds are getting thicker, the rain hasn't started yet. After walking for a few minutes. Do you want to keep a kitten? 30,000 yen, looking at the blue subtitle in front of me, Ji Mingwu was slightly stunned. Does this game still require mandatory pet keeping? Unfortunately, he has always disliked cats. I don't want to. The phone in my pocket vibrated. Received 30,000 yen. Shiina Wu watched the text message and stood in place waiting for half a minute, but the blue subtitles never popped up again. I feel like I missed something. After the small meeting, he put his phone back in his pocket and continued walking towards home. When passing by a corner, I saw a girl wearing a white dress sitting on the roadside with her knees in her arms, her body trembling gently. It's April and the weather is still slightly cool, so this outfit is somewhat strange. He approached and saw that the white dress was still in the style of a nightgown. After pondering for a moment, Shiina Wu took the initiative to say. Hello, can I help you? The girl heard the sound and slowly lifted her head, which was a very beautiful and small face. She looked blankly at Shiina Wu, as if her gaze had crossed over him and looked into the mid-air behind him. Childish and helpless, it gives people an inexplicable possessiveness. No wonder people from the beautiful country are all good at that. Ji Mingwu thinks he is a very simple person, and generally it is impossible for him to have those strange and bizarre XPs. The girl in front of him let him know that everything has a reason. Well, he simply wants to give her a home, and if his age is not suitable, being a father is not a bad thing. Are you waiting for someone? It's going to rainstorm. Ji Mingwu pressed his imagination and walked up to her, squatting down. The girl's empty gaze followed him. People all have desires, it's like seeing white and fragrant gardenia flowers blooming. I can't help but come up and smell them, then drag 2 more and put them in my pocket. For beautiful things, there will be an impulse to take them for oneself. The girl looked even slimmer than Yuan Xingjie, and she shook her head gently when she heard Ji Mingwu's words. Here's the umbrella for you, go back early. Ji Mingwu remained silent for a moment, took out a black folding umbrella from his backpack behind him, placed it next to the girl, and then left without looking back. He was afraid that if he didn't leave again, the beast in his heart would break free from its shackles. He never thinks he's a good person, but people shouldn't do that. If it's an adult girl, he doesn't mind, after all, do as the Romans do when in Rome. But for a small flower bud that has not yet bloomed, he cannot. Actually, based on the current situation, how could Jimingwu not guess? This girl is highly likely to have run away from home. If you take her in, you can enjoy the sweetness. After all, this kind of thing happens tens of thousands of times every year in this country. The girl silently watched as Shiina Wu walked away, until her back became blurry and disappeared. Did he leave? Unfortunately. He looks pretty good. The girl withdrew her gaze with some regret and buried her head in her knee, like an abandoned baby beast. Boom! Light purple lightning lit up in the black clouds, and the girl's body trembled again. She seemed very afraid of thunder. A drop of rain fell on the girl's tender neck, like the foul-smelling mucus dripping from the dragon's open mouth. Tonight, she can't escape. After all, there is no home left. Do you want to stay at my house for one night? The familiar voice sounded, and the girl lifted her head again. But she still didn't speak, which made Ji Mingwu feel a bit helpless. The two of them stood in a stalemate for a while, and he didn't know how to make this kind of homecoming girl obediently follow him. After all, he had never done such a thing before. Come home with me, I won't hurt you. After saying this wise saying, he was clearly stunned for a moment, and then he had a feeling. Most greasy men would say such a thing in this situation now. The girl remained silent, but Ji Mingwu frowned. After a moment, he decisively turned around and left, because he saw the girl's gaze change from empty to it's like looking at a clown, as if the next second you're going to say, what's the difference between you and them? This makes Jiming Fog very uncomfortable. He really just looked at her pitifully and wanted to take her in for a night. Wait until tonight and let the girl make plans. After all, Shiina Wu knows that at her age, she is most likely to do irreparable things due to impulsiveness. It will rainstorm tonight, and the girl absolutely needs a house. There will definitely be someone taking pictures of her body by then. He can conscientiously do a good deed, but it doesn't mean he has to do it, it doesn't mean he's a bad person. The sky started to rain slowly, but the thunder continued to roar. Shiina Wu couldn't help but quicken his pace, wanting to return home before the heavy rain poured down. Who made him think he had given the umbrella away? After walking for about 3 or 4 minutes, he suddenly turned and looked around as if feeling something. More than 20 meters behind him followed a girl in a white dress, holding his black folding umbrella in her right hand. Seeing Shiina Wu standing still, she also stopped in her tracks. The two of them looked at each other like this, one standing in the rain and the other under the umbrella. The white street lamp suddenly lit up, shining silver-white light on the wet green leaves, and the raindrops were also set off, drifting diagonally like snow particles. Ji Mingwu quickly discovered the discordant areas. She only has one shoe. Previously, she squatted on the roadside, with a white dress blocking her view, so he didn't notice. The left foot is wearing a black women's slipper, while the right foot is directly stepping on the wet asphalt road. That right foot is very small and white, in sharp contrast to the black asphalt road. She seemed to notice the gaze of Ji Mingwu and involuntarily shrunk her feet, her beautiful toes curved. Where are your shoes? Shiina Wu didn't hide his gaze and asked directly. Lost. The girl's voice was very cold, and Shiina Wu suddenly realized that this was the first sentence she said to him. There are two ways to say it's lost, one is intentionally lost, and the other is not intentionally lost. Judging from her still wearing one shoe, it should be the second type. So before that, she might have run a bit hastily and lost her slippers. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Subjective or objective questions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Subjective or objective questions. Shiina Wu originally thought that girls were just common girls in this country who ran away from home due to high pressure. But now it seems that there may be other hidden secrets. Do you want to come home with me? He looked up at the sky. It was already past 6 o'clock, and the sky was about to become completely dark. The girl remained expressionless, but she slowly walked towards Shiina Wu and stood in front of him. Holding an umbrella in her right hand, she wanted to shield Shiina from the rain, but because she was too short, she had to stand on tiptoe. Think about it. The sound has no color. Your shoes have fallen off. Do you need me to hold you and walk? Walking barefoot on asphalt roads on rainy days is indeed poetic, but it was only in the first few minutes. If she were to walk back home with him like this, she wouldn't be able to grind out a few blood bubbles. After all, it's delicate and tender. Okay. The girl hesitated for a moment and nodded calmly. Ji Mingwu bent down and gently picked her up in the posture of a princess. She obediently lay in the arms of Shiina Wu, shrunk her body, and found a comfortable position. She held an umbrella high in her left hand, and two strangers hid under the same umbrella. One day, I hugged two beautiful girls one after another, which was quite deliberate. However, the two of them had very different tactile sensations, and holding Yuan Xingjie gave him a stiff and unnatural feeling, and now the girl in her arms is like a cat, as soft as boneless. Cats. Thinking of this name mist, I couldn't help but think of the sentence in the game's subtitle, "Do you want to keep a little cat?" So, the cat here does not refer to cats, but rather is similar to chamomile. My name is Ji Mingwu, what is your name? Asakura sound. Shiina Wu nodded and didn't ask any further questions. Girls are very reassuring and don't move around easily. But he also discovered something interesting. Whenever there was thunder, her body couldn't help but tremble, and her empty right hand instinctively grabbed his coat. 15 minutes later, Ji Mingwu carried Asakura in and walked to a 3-story building behind an old street, which looked very retro. The blue sunshade on the balcony has faded to blue and white, and the green painted guardrail is also somewhat rusty. You can put away the umbrella. He stood at the staircase and whispered softly, without any intention of lowering her. I always feel that the girl's fair and tender feet should not step on the dust. Asakura obediently folded the umbrella and held it in her left hand. Is this your home? When Ji Mingwu stood at a doorway on the second floor, she spoke out and asked. Well, it's a bit shabby, isn't it? It's still rented and I'll live alone. He said indifferently, without feeling embarrassed about it. I also want to have such a home. The voice of the young girl in her arms did not fluctuate much, but Ji Mingwu felt that she was not pretending to flatter, but really wanted such a home. Shiina Wu did not follow her words and instead gestured for Asakura-in to take out the key from his backpack. The key is in the second compartment of the backpack, and the dark yellow key is inserted upside down. Asakura-in used her right hand to pass through his armpit and grope in his backpack. This action made her profile inevitably press against the left chest of Zimingwu, as if listening to his heartbeat. Not long after, Asakura-in took out a keychain and opened the door. Ji Mingwu placed her on the sofa, breathed a sigh of relief, and gently shook her numb arms. The girl is very light, but she always maintains one movement, causing her arms to lose some force. Thank you. Asakura-in glanced at him, her eyes no longer empty, but her face remained expressionless. Let's go take a shower first, and I'll get you some clothes to wear. You shouldn't mind wearing men's clothes, do you? Shiina Wu pointed to the bathroom and walked towards the bedroom. I don't mind. When he came out with a white shirt and summer pants, he saw that Asakura had already entered the bathroom. The sound of dripping water echoed through the opaque glass door, and he placed his clothes on the hanging basket outside the bathroom and gently knocked on the door. The water inside the door was quickly shut and there was no sound inside. I left my clothes at the door. Ji Mingwu finished speaking and walked towards the sofa, without forcing anyone. He knows better than anyone that the door of his bathroom cannot be locked. But since we agreed not to touch it, we won't touch it. After thinking so, he sat back on the sofa with his back to the toilet and took out his phone to search. Will having sex with a young girl from a young family lead to imprisonment? Then he exclaimed in his heart, fortunately. Now that there is a system, there is no need to do things that are just for one shake. Although it seems that this system will only give Xiao Yanzi some comfort, it has already made his life more comfortable. No need. If Asakura's parents come and accuse him of molestation, I don't know if we also need to step on the sewing machine here. Forget it, good days will still grow in the future, there's no need to worry. After thinking so, he searched for galgame again. There are many types of game in the mobile phone, but no matter which game, the icon is an anime beauty girl as the background. This type of game is very common in Tokyo, and almost every otaku has played over a dozen games, you just need to follow the strategy. Ji Mingwu remembered a blurry sentence from the blue subtitle and had some guesses in his heart. It seems that the system will not interfere with his choices based on what happened today, which means that the outcome of this game is not fixed. To put it plainly, if Huang Mao doesn't take care of his behavior of stealing money, Yuan Xingjia's life this month will be very difficult. But if he says something to stop it but doesn't pay attention to Huang Mao, Yuan Xingjia Xia will be bullied by Huang Mao. Of course, there are other factors involved, such as being chubby, the driver's uncle, the old lady in a wheelchair. If these were placed in the game, they would be like NPCs, but now they are all living people, and the uncertainty factors will increase exponentially. There are even many factors that he has not encountered at all. So the outcome is actually not fixed, but related to his choice and environmental factors. Another thing is Asakura-in, facing the system's question of whether he wants to keep a kitten or not, he chooses not to do so. So the system didn't prompt him to meet Asakura-in, but in reality he encountered her and even deceived her. Brought her home. It seems more certain that the blue subtitles are just prompts and will not interfere with his choice. The system does not provide objective questions, but subjective questions that allow him to choose how to write. Click it. Upon hearing the sound, Shiina Wu knew it was the sound of his old bathroom door being opened. He instinctively turned his head to look. I saw the glass door open a crack, and a small white lotus-like hand took the white shirt hanging at the door in. Then the glass door quickly closed again. Shiina Wu withdrew his gaze and waited for 2 minutes before the click sound rang out again. Asakura-in walked out wrapped in his towel, with a white towel wrapped around her hair. It's like a girl coming out of anime. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. I am clean. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. I am clean. At least until today, Shiina Wu had only seen such a beautiful girl make such a move in an anime. Cough, why aren't you wearing the clothes I gave you? Don't you like that shirt? Shiina Wu withdrew his gaze and looked into the girl's eyes, saying. The clothes are too big. Asakura-in shook her head. Sorry, I don't have any girls' clothes at home. Asakura said lightly. Your clothes are wet, won't you go wash them? Yes, I'll go wash it now. In the evening, he was caught in the rain for a while. Although his physical condition is not bad now, his psychological age has already passed the time to persevere. Oh, by the way. There's a hair dryer in the drawer of the cabinet over there, you can blow dry your hair. He suddenly remembered something and pointed to the brown-red cabinet on his left, saying. Seeing the girl nod, Shiina Wu picked up the clean clothes that had been prepared by the side and walked over Asakura-in towards the bathroom. As the glass door was closed, Asakura-in slowly walked to the place where he had just sat and sat down, then lowered her head and wondered what she was thinking. Who? A faint and imperceptible breath came, mixed with the girl's confusion and helplessness. As soon as he entered the bathroom, Shiina Wu was attracted by the white dress in the corner. What do those pink clothes and blue bow-tied pants mean? They were just placed there like this. How much do you use a skirt to block it? How could there be a reason to put weight on top of a skirt? I'm not afraid of having more flavor tomorrow, right? Do you believe in people like that? Thinking of the girl's tender body, Ji Mingwu silently swallowed his saliva, hesitated for a long time, and then said he had given up. After taking a deep breath, the heat in his heart gradually dissipated. After taking off his clothes, he opened the valve for the sprinkler. Stand with your head down and let warm water splash over your hair, then let it flow down. The warm water flow is the best way to soothe fatigue. Both girls were very light, and he hugged them easily. However, he held them back and forth for too long. I don't know how long it took, about half an hour, or maybe more. When Ji Mingwu walked out of the bathroom, Asakura-in had already leaned against the sofa and slept. He walked up to Asakura-in and saw the girl curled up on the sofa, her eyebrows furrowed lightly, as if she was having a nightmare. My heart is really big. Shiina Wu was somewhat speechless, and since they had just met for the first time, she dared to sleep alone in a towel. Gently picking her up, Shiina Wu walked towards the bedroom, placed the girl on the bed, and pulled a thin blanket to cover her. Tisk. Looking at the quiet girl on the bed, he clicked and shook his head, then walked out without looking back. When passing by the door, I also closed it by the way. When the room was pitch black, Asakura silently opened her eyes. Don't touch me. She frowned, afraid I might not be clean as early as the moment Shiina Wu picked her up, she woke up. After waiting for another half hour, there was no sign of Ji Mingwu coming in. Asakura-in lay in bed, unsure of what she was thinking. Roaming. Spring is rainy, and the rain has been intermittent these days. Almost as the thunder sounded, the girl's body trembled. When the continuous lightning did not light up again, she sat up from the bed. Ji Mingwu can be said to have just fallen asleep on the sofa. Hello. I don't know how long I slept, but he heard someone shout and opened his eyes in a daze. He saw Asakura-in standing aside wrapped in a towel. What's wrong, can't you get used to sleeping? Shiina Wu rubbed her eyes, but she still hasn't woken up. I want to sleep on the sofa. Oh. Probably too tired, he didn't think much and got up and walked towards the bedroom, leaving Asakura standing alone by the sofa. After entering the bedroom, Shiina Wu collapsed onto the bed again. The bed was much more comfortable than the sofa, and there was still the fragrance of a girl in the blanket. I'm confused and don't know why I have this idea. Even though Asakura uses his shampoo and shower gel. As soon as he closed his eyes, he felt someone enter his arms. The two people's skin touched each other, giving him a fairly soft feeling. It's so comfortable to hold it. Ji Mingwu, who realized this, suddenly woke up. Firstly, although he knew that there were 3 adult vending machines on the old street ahead, he had never bought a doll. Secondly, this humanoid pillow actually heats up. So, what are you doing? This is the reward. The calm voice of the girl came from her arms, making Shiina Wu very dizzy. I said I don't need it. He said with a hint of anger, recalling the gaze of the girl in the evening. Why? Asakura couldn't help but move her body and found a more comfortable position to lie in his arms. But this action made Shiina Wu take a cold breath. I'm very clean. You're too young. Ji Mingwu sighed in silence after a brief meeting. Disgusting. In the darkness, Asakura-in stared at Shiina Wu and said slowly. Shiina Fog. I said you're too young. Oh, I'm already 18 years old. Do you think I'll believe it? You're so small. Shiina Wu was not fooled at all, he pointed out the problem directly. Are you looking down on me for being short? Asakura-in kicked him in the bed, without any killing power, but it almost broke through the defense of Ji Mingwu. Shiina Wu promised that if it weren't for his fear of stepping on the sewing machine, he would have made Asakura-in suffer a bit. Are you really 18? Forget it. Shiina Wu is still a bit uneasy, thinking that she is lying about her age, after all, who is 18 years old and looks like a junior high school student. I'm very clean, you're the first one. Asakura explained, as if talking about something ordinary. Almost as she said these words, Ji Mingwu pressed her under her body. Hiss. Upon hearing Asakura's inhaling sound, Shiina Wu realized that she was hurting and slowly eased her movements. In the darkness, Asakura's face could not be seen, but he could clearly feel the girl's body trembling. She is very afraid. Even if she pretended to be calm, her body still exposed what she was thinking in her heart. Why me? This is just compensation, don't think too much about it. The voice was very cold, completely different from the tone that a passionate girl should have. Anyway, I'll give it to someone else. Choose a nice one for the first time. She thought of this sentence as if convincing herself. I don't like promiscuity or socializing. As Ji Mingwu spoke, his body was not at all honest. He held Asakura-in tightly, as if trying to rub her into his body. I'm very clean. This is the third time she has said the word, clean. Well, but I don't like that. The two just met, and Asakura-in climbed onto his bed like this. He knew it wasn't because he liked it. That means she will definitely climb onto someone's bed today, whether that person is him or not. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. About I want to bring a brand new. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. About I want to bring a brand new. Why, am I not good? Looking. Shiina Wu shook his head. He didn't want to be the beginning of a girl's downfall, not because his heart had softened again, but because he had too much ambition and wanted to take the girl as his own. How to say it? I want to lock my brand new shared bike and only ride it for myself. He wants it both physically and mentally. If you eat her today, it will naturally be delicious. But this also made her no longer bound by the word clean and willing to fall from grace. She can climb onto his bed, or onto another man's bed. Shiina Wu has no reason to confine her to her side. Once a cat becomes wild, it no longer loves home. The less you let her do something, the more she wants to do it. This is also why Ji Mingwu doesn't like cats very much. He felt that he was a very traditional person, and he had touched every part of the girl except for the doorstep. Since that's the case, we can only reluctantly keep this little cat. I want to have a cat now. What? Asakura was a bit confused about a thoughtless sentence from Ji Mingwu. She clearly felt that the heavy breathing of the man in front of her eased a lot. My home doesn't lack food. You can stay here until you can find a home like mine. As early as in the stairwell, I could tell that Asakura-in really longed for a home. Or rather, she really wants to live freely and freely like him. But she has no chips except for her body, that's why she's like this. Why? I said, I want to have a cat now. Ji Mingwu leaned his face towards her and gently kissed her face. Regarding this, Asakura-in found that she didn't actually feel disgusted. Even men are very disgusting. Why? What do I need to give? She doesn't want charity from strangers. Perhaps giving twice is sincere, but over time, others will also feel bored. She doesn't want to be abandoned or betrayed again, really not anymore. Well, you can help me clean the room. Of course, if you can cook, that would be great. I've already vomited the bread at the school convenience store. The Jiqing High School where he is located does not have a cafeteria, and most of the students inside bring bento bags to school, with a few going to convenience stores like him to buy some fast food. As an orphan, Ji Mingwu has never eaten such a thing as bento. Every day, he either makes instant noodles, bread, or a single-style boxed lunch. He has hardly had any nausea this year. I can't cook, but I can learn. After a brief silence, Asakura-in said. Feeling that Shiina Wu didn't just take her in because of pity, she was convinced. Of course, one of the reasons why you may not feel nauseous when you are with Ji Ming Wu may also be. I'll give you the spare key tomorrow, that's settled. Shiina Wu chuckled lightly and knew that the girl in her arms couldn't run away, so she was naturally happy. Okay, she paused for a moment before continuing. Do you really? Don't want me today? I don't mind. As she spoke, she used her small hand to touch the chest of Ji Ming Wu. The technique was very unfamiliar, but the damage was a critical strike. Faced with the girl's confusion, Ji Ming Wu didn't speak anymore, but tightly hugged the girl and didn't let go. After the small meeting, I actually fell asleep so directly. He is really tired. He walked back and forth with two girls for at least an hour today. If it weren't for Asakura-in being at his house today, he would have gone to bed without even wanting to take a shower. Feeling the gradually steady breathing of the mist in the spine, Asakura was somewhat surprised. She lay motionless in his arms, afraid of waking up the mist. It was very comfortable in his arms, and the long absence made her feel a sense of security. If you follow him, you will never be seen again. That disgusting gaze that reminded people of having nightmares, she never wanted to see it again. Gently closing her eyes, Asakura-in secretly sniffed at his chest, like a stray cat picked up and sniffed the new owner's hand, wanting to remember his scent. Soon, there were only two people in the room, breathing steadily and sleeping together. Asakura had another dream. I dreamed that there was a bloodshot eye at the door, like a ghost, prying into her privacy, but every time she woke up, the room door was tightly closed. She can no longer distinguish between reality and dreams. When she first told her mother about this, her usually gentle face changed drastically, scolding her not to talk nonsense as there were no outsiders at home. Since that day, my mother has been arguing with my stepfather frequently. She didn't know why, until one day she saw her stepfather secretly stuffing the clothes she had changed into her briefcase. Memories reappear like a tide. She had seen the owner of that eye as early as a month ago. That was the first time she had witnessed it with her own eyes. On a rainy night, a pale thunderstorm lit up outside the window, shining on her stepfather's face at the door, like a demon. For the happiness of her mother, she selectively forgot about this matter. Who knew that although her stepfather had restrained himself, he also hid it even more? A few days later, because she had been sleeping restlessly for over a month, her body was inevitably feeling a bit uncomfortable. The teacher saw that she was very lethargic and agreed to her request for leave early. She returned to her nightmarish home alone. Mom seems to have gone to the convenience store, so she didn't see her coming back. She lay back in her room in a daze and fell asleep. I don't know how long she slept, but she was awakened by the sound of arguments between her mother and stepfather. You bastard, Ian is your daughter. How could you say such a thing? Hui, you know I love you and I also love our daughter. Isn't it okay for the three of us to live happily together? Impossible. Get out of here. The angry roar of a woman. Hui. Have you forgotten the happy days we spent together? Ian has already discovered me. I can only make a choice. What are you saying? The woman's shocked screams. Hui. Do you want me to leave or do you want the three of us to live well together? You must make a choice. The sound of falling objects. You damn beast. Why don't you go die now? Believe me, Hui. The sound of two people tearing apart. After a few minutes of silence, the sound of saliva mixed outside the door came again. Accompanied by the sound of rubbing clothes. You bastard. Mom's voice is no longer so dominant. Hui. I love you. The sobbing of a woman. I will discuss with Ian. Her eyes suddenly widened under the blanket, and she covered her mouth tightly with both hands, telling herself from the bottom of her heart that it was a dream and that it could not be true. But she couldn't bear the sadness and let out a small cry. The door suddenly became as quiet as death. "Ian, are you at home?" For a long time, my mother's gentle voice came from outside the door. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Nausea. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Nausea. The next day, Ji Mingwu woke up early and couldn't help but feel a bit dazed as he looked at the girl in his arms. This is truly a magical country. Before today, he had no interaction with Asakura-in, but now she is lying naked in her arms. The girl slept quietly, but he felt a bit uneasy. The natural phenomenon of waking up early is already uncomfortable, let alone holding such a lovely person in my arms. He felt that he could be called modern Liu Xiaohui, but he didn't know how to achieve such a high status. Probably the temptation of a sewing machine. Gently releasing Asakura's voice, he stood up and walked lightly towards the outside of the room. After a simple wash, Shiina Wu glanced at the time, 7:04 a.m. He picked up the small white dress in the corner of the bathroom, separated his underwear from the small white dress, and soaked it in laundry detergent and hot water for a while. After simple scrubbing, he put it on the balcony to dry. After finishing these, it was already 7:30. After thinking for a moment, he walked into the kitchen and started preparing breakfast for today. Before that, he either didn't eat in the morning or simply went to a 24-hour fast food restaurant to handle it. But from today on, I'm not alone anymore. Life has to have a sense of ceremony. After frying 2 poached eggs, he ordered noodles for 2 more people. There is no refrigerator at home, so there is no inventory of scallions, lean meat, etc. The cooked noodles look a bit greasy at first glance. After being served in a porcelain bowl, he placed 1 egg each and placed 2 bowls of noodles on the dining table. He turned around and walked towards the bedroom. Why should a man who can cook get an extra 3 points? Can you please fill this first impression directly? From what we can see now, his golden fingers are somewhat stretched, only giving some yen, as well as pre-warning in post-narration. He won't let the girls get behind him. If you want to truly live a happy life, you have to control it yourself. After thinking so, Shiina Wu opened the bedroom door with a smile, but her face suddenly stiffened. Asakura-in sat on the bed in the room with a pale face, her eyes empty as if she had lost her soul. He walked quickly to the bedside and gently shook her shoulder. "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Her exposed upper body was still naked, but at this moment, Ji Mingwu couldn't get any attention. Just because he saw Asakura-in sweating cold sweat all over her body, coupled with her pale complexion, like a drowning person. Shiina Wu wrapped her around the thin quilt and then took the opportunity to hold her in his arms. "Don't touch me," Asakura-in said coldly, her body trembling slightly as she struggled to detach from the hands of Shiina Wu. "Disgusting." Ji Mingwu was momentarily stunned and then fell silent. After a moment, he still draped the pushed blanket over Asakura-in's body, but there was no intention of hugging her again. "It's still a bit cold, don't catch a cold." Asakura-in didn't answer and still sat absent-mindedly on the bed. "I made noodles for breakfast. Please tidy up and come out to eat some." He pointed to the white shirt placed next to him and walked out of the room without looking back. Asakura silently turned her head to look at his back, until the door was closed and her heart pounded. Ji Mingwu walked over to the dining table and sat down, shaking his head as he looked at the 2 bowls of noodles in front of him with poached eggs. Although he could feel that Asakura's disgusting words were not aimed at him, he still felt a bit uncomfortable for no reason. How can it be said that someone also stuffed love letters into the shoe cabinet at Jicheng High School? Why did he behave like a licking dog today? I woke up early to wash her clothes and make breakfast, but when I walked in, I was yelled disgusted. Not comfortable, very uncomfortable. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. You smell well. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 You smell well. Ji Mingwu shook his head again. At this moment, the bedroom door was opened and Asakura, wearing a white shirt, walked out. That white shirt is indeed too big, with the hem reaching the center of the thighs, and both sleeves being pleated. She walked up to Shiina Wu, clutching her shirt cuffs with both hands, feeling a bit lost. After a brief meeting, she lowered her head and said stiffly, "I'm sorry." "Well, it's okay, let's eat first." Since everyone has apologized voluntarily, it's not easy for Ji Mingwu to dwell on anything more. He's not so stingy. Don't be angry. Okay. You're still angry, Asakura-in whispered after looking up at him. Shiina Wu was surprised and said to himself, "Auntie, aren't you talking nonsense? I'm not a robot, can you just say I'm not angry if you don't say I'm not angry?" He naturally couldn't articulate these words. "Let's have some noodles first, it's time for the meeting." Who knew that Asakura-in was not moved, as if she wouldn't eat when the mist in Shiina disappeared. "Well, I'm talking about Asakura. This person is not easy to calm down. Can you wait for me to calm down and eat first?" Shiina Wu had to patiently explain. But disappointment accumulates bit by bit, Asakura said word by word. Ji Mingwu was slightly taken aback, not understanding how this was related to the main principle. But as he looked at Asakura's serious expression, he couldn't help but restrain his perfunctory expression and pondered. "So what should I do? How do you feel strange even though you are feeling angry?" "I don't know," Asakura shook her head. Sheena's face turned black with mist. He looked at the disappearing noodle soup in the bowl and casually said, "Okay, then give me a kiss and I won't be angry." I always feel like this sentence is like the line of the female protagonist in a TV drama, but in fact, he is being guided, right? Asakura-in hesitated for a moment, then bent down and leaned over. Under the surprised gaze of Shiina Wu, he approached his right face and took a gentle sniff, which made Shiina Wu stand up with sweat all over his body. "Moo." Asakura-in lightly imprinted on his face and then stood up straight again. "Cough. What's that? Do I have a smell on my face?" "What do you mean by smelling it?" Even though they both met candidly last night, how could I still feel a sense of happiness after being kissed on the face today? When have I been so unproductive? "You smell great," Asakura said. "That's not what you said earlier." Shiina Wu stared blankly as he remembered a scene in his bedroom before, like a local dog that had been hit on the dog's head with a dog-beating stick, not fooled. "Men are all disgusting, you smell so good." Sheena's mouth twitched again, is he being pua? But he glanced at the girl wearing his own white shirt, and saw her bare, white legs that seemed to be shining. "It's okay, I can be Asakura's dog." After considering this, Ji Mingwu couldn't help but ask with a smile. "Am I still angry now?" "No," Asakura glanced at him intently and shook her head. "Ji Mingwu is a bit unhappy, why am I so easily dismissed? Next time if you want me to be happy, just give me a kiss." Asakura sound. She didn't answer, but suddenly asked. "What if I kiss you and you're still unhappy?" "Then you can call me Dad, I'm sure I'm in a good mood," said Shiina Wu without any shame, taking a step forward. Asakura frowned strangely and glanced at him. Abnormal. Ji Mingwu didn't notice, she gently moved her right foot but hesitated. He laughed heartily, feeling that his mood had indeed improved. The relationship between the two is somewhat difficult to understand, unlike a couple, but they can naturally do things that couples only do, and joke about things that couples can only do together. Perhaps, as early as last night, their hearts had already come closer, right? Ji Mingwu thinks it should be like this. "Well, you go wash up first, and then let's eat noodles together." Shiina Wu glanced at the time, 7:47. "It's still early, it's enough to arrive at school before 9 o'clock." "Okay." Asakura nodded and walked towards the bathroom. There is a new toothbrush in the closet next to the mirror. As for the towel, if you don't mind, you can use mine first. Following the habit of changing toothbrushes every 3 months, Wu always prepares in advance. He looked at her small feet on the floor and continued. Today is Friday, I don't have class this afternoon. I'll take you to buy some daily necessities, as well as shoes, clothes, and so on. Thank you. Asakura-in paused and said without looking back. It's okay, hurry up and go wash up, my face is already cold. After Asakura-in walked into the bathroom, Shiina Wu silently withdrew his gaze. Like old buildings, the bathroom has been around for some time now, and the bottom of the faucet has long been rusty. The wash basin, which should have been crescent white, has also turned slightly yellow. Fortunately, the room is relatively clean and tidy overall, without any odor, indicating that the owner of the room loves cleanliness. Asakura looked at the girl in the mirror and couldn't help but be stunned. She reached out and touched her face before regaining consciousness. She took out a brand new toothbrush from the closet, unpacked it, squeezed out toothpaste, and carefully brushed her teeth. In fact, not only did Ji Mingwu find it unbelievable, but she was also a party involved. Before today, she had a mother who loved her very much, and she could go to school and finish school with peace of mind. But now, she is already homeless. Life is like opening a blind box and coming to this old house. Fortunately, the owner of the house seems to have some bottom line, not some pervert. Thinking of this, her brushing of teeth slowed down, and Ji Mingwu joked that if he gets angry next time and doesn't get along well, he'll call him Dad. Dad. That's really a disgusting word. Whether it's biological or stepfather. They are not good things. Asakura took a glass of water from the mirror and took a sip before rinsing her mouth carefully. Then she picked up the gray towel hanging next to the closet and gently sniffed it before washing her face. The taste in his arms is very similar, very pleasant. Asakura-in seems to enjoy making the act of sniffing and smelling. I'm not sure why. With the familiar clicking sound, the girl walked up to Shiina Wu and sat down. We don't have a refrigerator at home, so we can only cook some noodles. I hope you will like it, Ji Mingwu handed her chopsticks and said politely. Thank you. I'm moving. Shiina Wu watched as Asakura-in took a small bite of the noodles and picked up chopsticks to eat. As a social animal in my past life, I had to learn how to cook on my own. Just to save some takeout money. Now it seems that culinary skills have not disappeared with time, at least this bowl of noodles is still quite good. Shiina was confused and finished eating the noodles, then he began to look at the girl in front of him. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The world with gray tones must have some colors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The world with gray tones must have some colors. She is very good. Looking. She doesn't eat noodles like Shiina Wu's powder, but takes them one by one and chews them carefully in her mouth. The fingers are slender and the movement of holding chopsticks is somewhat non-standard, just like a child who has just learned to write, always feeling a bit out of place. But because she was so beautiful, Shiina Wu had no intention of mocking her, just felt very cute. What a double standard. Shiina Wu couldn't help but shake his head in his heart. Noticing the gaze of Ji Mingwu, Asakura-in lifted her head. She felt a little embarrassed when she saw that the noodles in his bowl were already empty, so she quickened her pace of eating noodles. It's okay, you eat slowly, it's okay. Sorry, I'm eating. It might be a bit slow. It's not that the plain water noodles you made are not tasty. Asakura-in looked at the bowl in front of her with more than half of the noodles left and explained in a low voice. Since he eats so fast, this bowl of noodles should be very delicious, right? It's okay, it's just a personal habit. Experts say that when eating, you should chew it carefully and swallow it slowly to help with digestion. Shiina Wu casually said, bringing out experts to town. Expert. Asakura had some doubts. Ji Mingwu finally remembered that it has only been 8 years since Tokyo, and 4G networks have not yet become popular, let alone cultural differences. It is normal to not understand this meme. The meaning is that I should learn from you. I shouldn't eat so fast, just like I haven't eaten noodles before. Oh, Asakura nodded and didn't say much because of Shiina Wu's self-deprecation. She continued to eat one bite after another, but her movements were still much faster. Ji Mingwu suddenly realized that for every 4 bites of noodles she took, she would take a sip of soup, as if it were a habit. I'm full. After finishing the last bite of noodles, Asakura couldn't help but breathe, as if completing a very difficult task. Good. Shiina Wu glanced at his phone and it was almost 8:20. This point is during peak work hours. To avoid being late, it is still necessary to go to school early. He pointed to the bowls and chopsticks on the table and said, I'll leave the dishwashing job to Asakura. You wash the dishes while I cook. Next time if you cook, I'll do it. Sure, Asakura nodded. Then I'll go to school first. Ji Mingwu got up and walked towards the sofa, picked up his backpack, and walked towards the door. By the way, don't open the door for strangers, wait for me to come back, he turned around and instructed. The girl was naked except for her white shirt, and he didn't want to show this treasure to anyone. The white gardenia flowers picked on the roadside belong only to him when he puts them in his pocket. Okay, Asakura nodded again. See you later. Goodbye. Shiina Wu hurriedly left, and Asakura-in was lost in thought as she watched the closed door. I don't know how long it has been. Roaming. Listening to the thunder outside, Asakura couldn't help but tremble and even curled up a bit. She is too afraid of thunder. She didn't turn her head to look outside until the continuous thunder subsided. The world in gray tones is just like her future, with no hope in sight. Suppressed and full of lifelessness. Her gaze suddenly took on a color. That is a white dress gently fluttering on the balcony in the wind. Asakura pursed her lips and the corners of her mouth slightly raised. Her face suddenly turned red. Because next to the white dress, there seems to be a pink dress with a bow on it. This kind of clothes with bows has only been washed by my mother and her own hands. In addition, there may have been a stepfather with a human face and animal heart who touched him. At the thought of this, Asakura Yin's face turned cold again. Men are all very disgusting. Well, let's exclude the name Mist for now. After all, he smells great. She stood up to tidy up the dishes and walked towards the cramped kitchen. The girl's dishwashing movements are very unfamiliar, and her white and tender hands seem to have never been exposed to these things. But she washed it very seriously because that young man loves cleanliness very much. Actually, most girls at her age are still sheltered by her parents, but unfortunately she is not included. Shiina Wu had just stepped onto the bus stop when he was also startled by the sudden thunder. Tokyo has been raining continuously for half a month now, and it feels like the rain in the first half of the year has been wiped out by these few days. It can't really be like in anime, Tokyo will be flooded, right? When will this damn weather end? He couldn't help but mutter. But in my heart, I was thinking that I forgot to tell Asakura-in to put away my clothes when it rained before going out. The balcony at home, which is less than half a meter away, will definitely get wet from the rainwater floating in. I don't know if Asakura-in will see it. Never mind, I can wash her again when the time comes. After all, the clothes feel soft to the touch, just like a girl's little hand rubbing and enjoying it. According to the weather forecast, it will clear up this afternoon, Shiina June. Upon hearing the voice of an acquaintance, Ji Mingwu turned his head to look. I saw a boy wearing the same school uniform as him walking from afar, wearing a pair of thick black framed glasses on his face. Good morning, Zayazayaquan. Although he doesn't participate in club activities, he manages the relationships with most of his classmates very well. After all, working for 1 or 2 years before was just a bit of a seasoned job, and getting along with these inexperienced high school students is much easier. The boy wearing glasses is named Ichiki Kobayakawa, who lives near the old street like him. I have good grades and can rank in the top 10 of my grade. I am also the class monitor of Class C in my sophomore year. I don't believe you told me it will clear up in the afternoon, said Shiina Wu, shaking his head after looking up at the dark clouds. That can only be blamed on those people from the meteorological station. Anyway, I'm just a messenger. Ichiki Kobayakawa didn't take it seriously. By the way, don't leave after school this afternoon. Why? Ji Mingwu glanced at him suspiciously. Don't leave after school. Isn't there a program after the school opening ceremony? Each class in the second year of high school has a program. Director Koizumi has heard that you can play the guitar, so he plans to let you perform. I heard I can play the guitar. Shiina Wu glanced at him. Do you want to hear what you're saying? When I was still in college, I always felt like I needed to learn something to increase my chances of getting out of college. However, he doesn't know how to play guitar, which means no one knew he could play guitar a year ago. After careful consideration, he thought that this rumor was probably from what Ichiki Kobayakawa had said. After all, this guy dropped in before and happened to be practicing guitar at that time. After Kazuki Kobayakawa walked in and glanced at the guitar placed beside him, his first sentence was, I didn't expect Shizumi Jun to be playing the guitar. I thought he was playing a song. Haha, I've seen your strength before, so don't hide it. Kobayakawa Ichiki helped his black-framed glasses and continued. There will be a very beautiful transfer student from Class A this time. If you behave well, Shiina might be able to get out of singlehood. Class A is a transfer student. I remember we were in Class C, right? Shiina Wu looked helplessly at Kobayakawa Ichiki blowing nonsense and chatting in the sea. Oh my, aren't you very annoyed that Teacher Koizumi said you don't participate in club activities? I promise you, this time you helped our class get through difficulties, Teacher Koizumi will definitely not advise you again. Kobayakawa Ichiki waved his hand. End of this chapter.